where I'm coming from. I'm based in beautiful city of Wrocław. I'm here with Nora on the SAP Culture Tour, and it is really great pleasure for me to be here as well during SAP Inside Track, especially that for last 10 years I've been the founder and organizer of SAP Inside Track and local community meetups as well in Wrocław. By mistake, I put SAP Inside Track Porto shirt today. Yes, thank you for that. And now everyone thinks that I came from Porto and speak Portuguese. De nada. So I do work for SAP. I'm really surprised that Nora, Tom, no one showed this disclaimer before because we are the corporate world. So I hope that everyone read this. Everyone understood? We can move on, right? Okay. So we did this community event, AI focused, last month in Amsterdam. And there during, do you hear me well? Or do I need to use the mic? Yeah, it's better. Okay. Yeah, actually maybe it is a good idea because I'm in Brazil, right? So, so there during the opening keynote, Robert, who is very active in SAP Community in Netherlands, was showing this slide. And I don't know if you will agree with these current challenges that SAP developers have during this era. And by the way, how many of you are developers? Okay, 5, 6, 7, 10. How many of you functional consultants? Okay, about half. How many of you are architects? Okay, how many of you are managers? Okay, seems like you have the most free time coming here. But maybe you will recognize this issue even if you are a manager, that during these days, kind of like one of the biggest issues that some of SAP developers are complaining about is this AI skill gap. And when he was talking about the AI skill gap and these gaps that we need to close, one of them that he mentioned was prompt engineering. And luckily I had Nora just speaking before me, so you know what prompt engineering is about, right? The prompt engineering started, if you look at Google Trends, in 2023. It didn't exist before. And some people even said on Twitter that there is a job of the future being a prompt engineer, and some people took it seriously. But if you think about prompt engineering, this is basically the technique for end users. This is how you structure this prompt so that you are getting the best answer. But at the same keynote that Robert did in Amsterdam, he was talking about this pyramid, and that at the very center of this pyramid is basically business context. And I believe that context is much more important in properly functioning AI application than the prompt. What I mean by that is if you compare prompt engineering with context engineering, and this is unfortunately, Nora, where we need to talk, comparing my kind of like presentation now and your presentation before, it's not the same. So prompt engineering for all of us who are end users and who are consumers and so on, but context engineering is for those of us who are building this application. This is where we need to park inside quite a serious stuff. So to visualize for you the difference, Nora, between prompt engineering and context engineering, we will have this discussion later on. So at the technical side, we need to focus more on this context engineering. So if you want to see me in suit, please come to SAP Poland, SAP Now event. But during the last one, and I was the moderator of the AI track there, pretty much every customer who presented their use case that they've built using AI had something in the middle. And it was SAP HANA Cloud, SAP HANA Cloud, SAP HANA Cloud. So why SAP HANA Cloud? How many of you are more into this AI is all the magic camp? Okay, seems like you haven't used it enough. How many of you are more in the like we are all doomed, like seriously doomed with AI? 2 people, 4 people, 5, 6, 7. So everyone else just don't care, or this is like you don't know what AI is. In Portuguese, this is ER. So maybe with this translation, it would help to answer this question. So I assume that everyone else who didn't raise your hand, you didn't understand my English, or you are somewhere in the middle camp, right? So just like there is a little bit of magic, but okay. Yeah, this is where most of the people people are. And why am I talking about that in the context of SAP HANA? So how many of you have heard about HANA, the database, not S/4HANA, the application, but HANA, the database? Okay, quite a few. But basically, SAP created SAP HANA database 15 years ago, and you might have heard, those of you who were long enough around, that there was this buzzword called in-memory processing. Anyone remembers this? Like you would go to executive meetings and SAP would be talking in memory, in memory, in memory. So even though it was like the most common buzzword, the most important, in my opinion, was another principle, which was so-called push-down processing. Basically, where you use HANA not to get data, retrieve this, put it in application server or some other application, process this data and push this data back to the database, but push the processing down and do all of this faster. So right now with SAP HANA, but when we are talking about the cloud, there are quite many areas where AI is being used. So for example, Rich mentioned about the use of AI in ABAP development. If you're working with HANA, it's not just for ABAP. If you watch our SAP developer news, which I assume every one of you does, right? Right? Okay, that's the right question, answer. Then you would know from our recent our recent news that, for example, now if you're working with HANA Cloud and you just write the prompt, and I just need to make sure that I am connected because I got disconnected in the meantime. If you write the prompt now with the latest version, you have something that calls run prompt, right? So I didn't write the SQL code myself. I just wrote the prompt, and now, obviously, LLMs need to think. It generated the SQL for me. Okay, for the moment, it is like pretty simple, right? So it is just select, start from sysdummy, but with only 5 of you raising your hands that you've heard about HANA before, I believe that this is already complex enough, right? But now, for example, for those of you who are executives and managers sitting here in the first row, and you need to understand what developer wrote here, you just go there and you just like explain this SQL statement for me, right? So it's getting kind of like much more difficult now for us developers to cheat you managers. Just like, this is my code, right? And it does what it should be doing. And then you are just like, explain this with AI. And then you read just like, no, this is not what I asked you. Or at least this is not what I paid you. So as I said, you know, it's not just ABAP. Now we have, oh, no. Sorry, I forgot about this feature of this application. This was about using AI for development. The other thing, when Thomas was talking about development, and he was mentioning MCP servers and agents and so on. So these agents are not only in development right now, but this is the post from yesterday from our lead product manager, Thomas Hammer. And basically now we have as well data and discovery agents in SAP HANA Cloud. Not that you care with only 5 people raising your hand, but just to build the complete picture, we have these agents now in HANA Cloud. They're in beta version, so customers who are interested to try it out can sign up and try this out. Moving on, let's talk about embeddings. And luckily, kind of like Nora already introduced you to this topic, and I hope that she did this much better comparing to our help. Because if you would go to our SAP help and try to understand what embedding is, it would say semantic embeddings are multidimensional representations of textual information. Everyone understood? Yeah. Luckily, we have Nora who explained this already. So embeddings is basically the very foundation of this generative AI that we have right now. But then you might have heard the word embeddings. You might have heard the word vector. And then you are confused, just like everyone else, which one is which. So the very simple thing, every embedding is a vector. Not every vector is embedding. And now, kind of like, I can totally see some of your faces there. No worries. Just like you don't need to remember all this statistical data and all these words unless you are going to update your CV and your LinkedIn profile after today, SAP Inside Track. But otherwise, just stay with me for a little bit longer. We talked about RAG, and Nora introduced like the very simple RAG, which is something that is called retrieval augmented generation, but the naive version. And naive version is just an assumption that whenever you are using these embedding models, they are producing the correct result for the very first time. Those of you who did or would do any real project using this vector engine, you will find it's not always the case. So basically, to facilitate this, now in SAP HANA, we have something that is called re-ranker. And re-ranker is much slower than vector similarity search, but it is much more correct. Did I lose you already? No worries. Just remember, we do innovate in SAP HANA, and we are introducing new stuff there to facilitate building AI applications. But it is not only about the text representation of data. You might have heard this other magic word that SAP is repeating quite often recently, SAP Knowledge Graph. Anyone of you heard about this? Okay, SAP folks. Okay, apparently our marketing doesn't do a good job, right? Because they take a lot of money, they produce a lot of slides, and only us SAP folks know what they are talking about. So we are here to fix this for you. Why do we need this? So Nora talked about these hallucinations. And one way to resolve this hallucination is basically indeed to introduce these knowledge graphs to help get rid of them. And this is what we will try to do it. That's why kind of like for last hour and a half, I was sitting in the last row and trying to prepare this live demo for you. So if something will fail, blame on mosquitoes here, because I needed to split my attention between these two things. So if we are talking about hallucination, right? So Nora asked which kind of like large language model or which vendor you are using here the most, and you said it was Anthropic Claude. Because I'm from Europe, I mostly use French Le Chat from the Mistral company, and I asked just like what are the countries and names of SAP developer advocates and community advocates living there. And as of April 2026, we have Antonio Maradiaga living in Spain, and then Nico Melzer. I don't know, Thomas, if you hired someone while we were here on the trip, but I never heard about this person before. Apparently, Nico Melzer is based in Germany, so Nora, maybe you know Nico? No? Neither? Okay. Then there is Sheena Sinha, Shilpa, Thomas Young. Okay, Thomas Young, he's based in the United States, so at least large language model got this one right. And Kevin Riedel, whoever it is. And then on SAP Community Advocates side, there are various advocates. And some of them are SAP champions, and some of them are SAP mentors, and so on and so forth, which was kind of like a very politically correct answer. And then I asked ChatGPT. And then it said that SAP developer advocates. So obviously Thomas Young at the head of developer advocacy lives in the US, and there is Rich Heilman, and then there is Michelle, and then there is Antonio Maradiaga, who lives in the US, which is not true. He lives in Spain, even though he's from Honduras, and there is Sheena, and that's kind of like all we got, right? So this shows you that these LLMs, they're really good in producing text, but they are not always knowledgeable enough, right? And it means that we need to use context engineering, something that I mentioned before from the developer side, to introduce the right information, to introduce the right text. And this is something that is called grounding, right? So we are going to the ground truth. So what I was doing sitting back there is that I kind of like built this knowledge graph. So in database objects, I have in my HANA Cloud something, the knowledge graph that is called SAP CodeJam Tour 2026 Brazil. And now I want to check what is in there. and it generates this beautiful query in something that is a mix of SQL and SparkQL. How many of you have heard about SQL before? Okay, how many of you have heard about SparkQL? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, some SAP dudes who heard about this from me, but otherwise it's about 2 people, right? So you haven't heard about Sparkle and what yet about programming in Sparkle, because this is the query that now would return the knowledge graph that I kind of like built sitting back there. And this knowledge graph basically says, so there is Witalij R, and Witalij R lives in country PL, Poland, and Witalij R has the name Witalij Rudnicki, and then we just go on and so on and so forth. Like Antonia is a community advocate, and okay, so I hope that you got the idea. Basically, knowledge graph is so-called triples. It's always subject, predicate, object. And I intentionally kind of like mentioned these 3 because I wanted to see once again these faces of yours. So this is our knowledge graph, and now, as I mentioned, to query this, to get the proper answers, we would need to write query like this. But instead, we can use HANA integration with lang chain, sorry, lang graph, lang chain. Anyone remembers where lang chain was mentioned today? Anyone? A single person? It was in Nora's presentation. No? You said, you showed the slide and you show okay. I assume that everyone was reading your slide, not just watching your slides, but basically Nora mentioned lang chain, we integrate, and it works with that. Okay, now you know. And then with this lang chain integration, now we can combine to build this kind of approach. So basically, what this approach says, in case you want to see that our application will use the large language model, but it will be using it kind of like twice. So first, for the question, it generates the Sparkle using large language model. It gets the results, and then these results are submitted once again to large language model, and then large language model generate the answer for us, right? So kind of like you ask once, we need to call this large language model twice. And this is what is happening. Basically, I just picked GPT 4.1. Sorry about that. And then the question that I want to ask is the same as I asked both ChatGPT and LeChat from Mistral, which is what are the countries and names of persons living there in the data. And once I execute this, what it does, it reads this human text, it generates the Sparkle code, right? So you can see that the code it generated, if I just copy it from here, and maybe I should as well keep my fingers crossed. If I copy it from here and I paste it here, and I did it wrong already, I need to mix this Sparkle with SQL, not that you need to know about that. And I'm running this query, right? So now this Sparkle that was generated by large language model returned the results from HANA, which says Thomas Young is based in the US, Witalij is based in PL, and so on. But in the meantime as well, it converted this data into human-readable text once again, right? And now you see that in United States, during this trip, we have Rich, Josh, and Tom coming here, and from Spain, okay, Antonio was a few weeks before, and from Germany, we have Nora and Antonia coming here, and from Poland, there is Witalij. And what is cool about this is because this is all, this RDF is kind of like web-based standard. If you click on one of these names, you can navigate to the person's page, and you can see this is how Nora looks like, and this is, you know, her activities on the community. So is it clear now? Clear as mud or clear? So, okay. But this is once again where I just wanted to show you that that with this knowledge graph, we can represent real facts. We can store them in SAP HANA, and then we can integrate this, for example, using LangChain, where we convert human language into the database query. Database query returns the results. We turn results into human-readable language once again. Any questions so far? I need at least one question, but not from SAP employees. Please. Just like how much longer it will take for you before you leave the stage. No one? I don't bite. Okay. Thank you for the question. So the reason for why I was insisting on questions is that I'm not going to take this back. I have a craft beer from my hometown. But
I have 12 questions.
I don't have any more Polish beers with me. So to answer your question, the question was, can I do this only with HANA Cloud, or can I do this with HANA on-prem database? And by HANA on-prem, do you mean HANA in like S/4HANA or HANA standalone on-prem? Private. Yeah, basically even in, I can repeat the question. So I will not mention the vendor, but if I have private cloud and I have, like even if this HANA is running in the private cloud, it is still like HANA on-premise version running there, and this HANA on-premise version doesn't have this functionality. Sorry about that, but this is why you should want to discover HANA Cloud. Okay, I see your faces, but luckily I'm not from sales here. I can tell the truth. Okay. Any other questions? Someone said you had 12. No? Not anymore? Okay. I don't have Polish beers anymore, but I have one from Switzerland, so I'm not going to take it back with me either. I mean, no need to clap. I didn't bring here like 200 beers now to distribute among all of them. But if you have any questions and you are not interested in beer, you still can find me and talk, we are cool. Okay, so this is where I just wanted to kind of like get this stuff a little bit more real. And now the most important thing that I want you to remember is we published this SAP news, right? Okay, our marketing published this SAP news, and from your earlier responses, I can assume safely that no one of you other than SAP employees read this. But this one actually was not bad, because this one is talking about what we at SAP believe the 2026 will bring when it comes to enterprise AI. And one of these points is discussing something that is called neurosymbolic AI. And neurosymbolic AI is basically just what I showed you or demoed to you a couple of minutes ago, because there was this neuro part of AI, which is basically LLM, right? It is based on artificial neural networks. And then there was this symbolic part, and symbolic part is basically the knowledge graph that I built. And symbolic representation of the knowledge is where humans are kind of like building or coding real knowledge. And this is what knowledge graph is about, right? So we believe that 2026 is going to be the year of this neurosymbolic AI. And if anything else, just remember this phrase, update your LinkedIn profile. It sounds really, really, really cool. So you will be able to prove that you've participated in this session. So if you are interested in trying any of this stuff anymore, Nora mentioned about availability of the basic trials, and then there is a bunch of different resources that our different teams prepared for you. So
I have a question.
I have no beers.
I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol. It's okay for me.
Okay.
I heard we are late, but no problem. We can have a coffee.
It shows 3 minutes, 42 seconds.
That's it. Related to SAP S/4HANA Cloud, we have an issue, especially for Brazil, because we are totally dependent of Brazilian localization and fiscal requirements. It's very strong here. I'm a financial account consultant, and then my perspective here is much more. It's beyond the AI. It's more related to the custom code you entered there. How this custom code is going to affect here to connect different legacies and different business processes to customize our localization to Brazil. I'm saying that because S/4HANA Cloud is a kind of poor product here in Brazil, saying right to the point. And then I think around 99% of the solutions is the private edition or PCE, because custom codes, right? We are totally dependent of this. And
2 minutes, 45 minutes.
my right to the point question, yeah. My question is how this product is going to be available to the market to enhance here our availability to get access to the S/4HANA Cloud, and also including all the tools related to AI. Do you have a roadmap, a kind of schedule of this, when we can have this product working here to integrate localization and custom core solution, right? This is the question.
I mean, it was a loaded question, and
If you have a sparkling water, it's okay for me.
No, I'm just I'm just checking for the pills against headache. Because I've been talking about HANA, the database, for 30 minutes, and then you're asking me about S/4HANA, which I wanted to stress are two different products, but and
Right.
as well, it's really difficult for me to answer the question about Brazilian market localization. But I hope now that there are folks from SAP Brazil here.
Yeah,
Who will be
it looks like a parallel universe for us, because it's HANA Cloud, but it's fancy to see. But in practical, I mean practical because I'm functional. I talk to the business. And then for us, it's kind of things that we are not going to have working here in Brazil. That's it. This is my question is, how can we implement this in terms of to evaluate the business, to add value to the business? I'm hearing the ticking here. It's a bomb? No, please.
Okay, you took the last 3 minutes of my session, so
no problem.
I can just go to this slide now, and then during the coffee break, we can kind of like try to unpack your really loaded
That's
question.
fine. That's okay.
And seriously, I was looking if I have at least one chocolate left, but I don't. Okay, obrigado. We will continue our discussion and enjoy the rest of your day.
This is a gift for you.